Sydney's Gangland War intensifies. A convicted drug kingpin gunned down in the city's east. Victoria Police accused of racial profiling during COVID lockdowns. Police probe the suspected murder of an Adelaide toddler.
And coming up on The Business, has the massive hype around artificial intelligence got legs?
This is ABC Late News. Hello, I'm Helen Kaur. 20 since 2020. That's how many fatal gangland shootings there have now been in Sydney. The latest has seen a cocaine kingpin gunned down while he was sitting in his car at Bondi Junction. Police say he had a big target on his back.
The sounds of sirens filled the air after gunshots rang out during the morning rush.
They put the tape up now. It's so scary.
Yet another underworld murder, this time in the heart of Bondi Junction.
We believe this is a targeted shooting, and we believe it's a targeted shooting of a high-level organised crime identity.
It's just a shock for something like this to happen at Bondi.
At around 8:30, 48-year-old drug kingpin Alan Meridian was shot dead in his car in the underground car park of his apartment block on Spring Street. As police tried to revive him, baffled witnesses looked on.
I thought they were sort of trying to arrest him. I didn't realise he'd been shot. I thought they were just trying to subdue him.
The cop stopped me and said, no, you can't come through here. There's been a tragic incident. Please just go back to wherever you came from.
The victim's wife once dubbed him the Tony Soprano of Australia's drug trade, and he was jailed for at least 10 years for his role in the so-called Golden Gun cocaine ring.
He has strong, high-level links to the Comanchero OMCG. He also has a high standing in the organised crime network. He's a major player.
Not long after the shooting, a sedan was torched in a laneway in Zetland, and a fire-damaged luxury four-wheel drive was abandoned in a cul-de-sac at Bondi Junction. Both are now being treated as potential getaway cars. While at least 2 gunmen are thought to now be on the loose, police have been at pains to reassure the public here at Bondi Junction that they're not in any danger. However, they've described the victim as a man with a very big target on his back, and they say they're now working hard to prevent any retaliation or escalation in Sydney's underground crime wars.
This was a abject and disgraceful, violent crime in New South Wales, and it will be met with the full force of the law from New South Wales Police.
But it's unlikely this will be the end of Sydney's gangland wars. Sarah Geraghty, ABC News, Sydney.
Internal police records about the fines handed out during Victoria's COVID lockdowns have raised serious questions about racial profiling. The data obtained through Freedom of Information requests suggests Victorians of African and Middle Eastern appearances got 4 times as many COVID fines for breaking public health rules.
Enduring some of the longest lockdowns in the world.
That's 288 more. That's 403 new cases, 723 new cases.
With harsh fines for breaking rules and tough police enforcement.
There are consequences. We said we would be increasing our enforcement. We are.
Leaving many Victorians on edge.
A lot of the areas I work in have a lot of young African communities that live there. They're areas where seeing uniformed officers is feels like a daily occurrence for some of these young men.
The ABC has reviewed all 37,000 fines issued under COVID public health orders in 2020, released by Victoria Police through Freedom of Information. In most cases, police recorded the racial appearance of the offender. More than 20% of the fines went to people of African or Middle Eastern appearance. That suggests they were fined at a rate about 4 times greater than their share of the population. People of First Nations appearance got 2.5% of the fines, but they make up just 1% of the state's population.
What we see in Victoria Police's own data is these patterns of disproportionate policing being applied.
This review by Dr. Tamar Hopkins looked at the different categories of fines, those for not wearing a mask and other breaches. But in cases where police were required to question an offender, she found people of African and Middle Eastern appearance were overrepresented. Victoria Police declined to be interviewed, but says any suggestion that officers targeted specific ethnic groups is false. The agency says it followed the health directions and that officers were routinely reminded to take a consistent approach. With tens of thousands of fines still unpaid, the impacts of the lockdowns still linger on. Ahmed Youssef, ABC News, Melbourne.
Police in South Australia have launched a murder investigation into the death of a 17-month-old boy. The boy was taken to an Adelaide hospital with severe head and internal injuries, which police believe were caused in an assault. Major crime detectives are now investigating and are asking for the community's help.
A child described as a beautiful little boy whose short life had a tragic ending.
The medical examination of Ronan found that he had critical head injuries and other serious internal injuries.
Ronan was being cared for by family friends at Glenelg North, but when his father picked up his child, he was unable to rouse him. The toddler died 2 days after he was rushed to hospital with severe head and internal injuries, described by police as not survivable.
It's our belief that these injuries were caused from an assault and that the assault occurred sometime on the afternoon of Wednesday, the 7th of June, at the Glenelg North address.
That address is in Ferguson Street, and the people who were looking after Ronan have been spoken to.
We have been provided an explanation of how Ronan's injuries were caused. We're not satisfied as to the truthfulness of that information, and that is certainly subject to our murder investigation now.
Police have not made any arrests or laid any charges. In a quiet part of Adelaide's western suburbs, residents were shocked when police arrived.
You just don't hear about this kind of stuff around here.
When it's involving a baby, it's different. It's, you know, hardens the heart, really.
Anybody with information about what happened to Ronan is asked to contact Crime Stoppers. Police would like to hear from people who were in this area on the 7th of June, including anyone with dashcam or CCTV footage. They say they're especially interested in vision from around 3 p.m. on that afternoon. Bethany Alderson, ABC News, Adelaide.
The AFL has removed disgraced former footballer Barry Cable from the Hall of Fame after he was found by a Perth court to have sexually abused a young girl. Sports reporter Tom Maddox has more from the annual Hall of Fame dinner in Melbourne.
7 new faces will be inducted into the AFL Hall of Fame this evening, and earlier today one name was removed altogether. As you say, a Perth court earlier this month ruled that Barry Cable repeatedly sexually abused a young girl during his illustrious playing career some decades ago. The woman, now aged in her 60s, was awarded more than $800,000 for the catastrophic damage that she suffered. So following that ruling, the AFL Commission today said it had no choice but to strip Barry Cable of his legend status and to immediately remove him from the Hall of Fame.
Our thoughts are with the woman involved and others who were courageous enough to come forward in a civil action and air the issues that occurred in their lives.
The victim says that she's welcomed this decision, but that it's come about a quarter of a century too late. And her lawyer today said that he's mystified that it's taken until today for the AFL to show any compassion towards the woman and to the 4 other women that gave evidence in this case.
The AFL's response to these women is really disturbing. They failed a real test in relation to what they do about women in the game. These women were sexually abused as children by an AFL coach.
The North Melbourne Football Club has also revealed today that it will remove Barry Cable from its Hall of Fame.
A 14-year-old boy has died after being hit by a car and stabbed in an attack in Melbourne. Police believe the boy had been walking home with 2 friends from Ginnifer Railway Station when a car struck him. 2 men wearing face coverings then got out of the vehicle and started stabbing him. The boy was treated at the scene but was dead on the arrival at the hospital. Homicide detectives are continuing to investigate.
We have no information at this stage to indicate that it's gang-related in any way, and we believe that this was, however, a targeted assault on the victim.
Russia says it's dropped its criminal case against the Wagner mercenaries who were behind the short-lived weekend rebellion. In an attempt to reassert authority, President Vladimir Putin has made his first public address since the mutiny, saying he didn't crush it in order to save lives. He's also confirmed Russian pilots were killed during the uprising. This evening, a plane suspected of carrying mercenary chief Yevgeny Prigozhin arrived in Belarus, where he's been exiled, but there have been no sightings of the Wagner boss.
Russia's propaganda machine is in full swing. Moscow's Ministry of Defence showing missiles and attack helicopters firing somewhere in Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin appeared in public for the first time since the mutiny, delivering a late-night address to the nation.
The organisers of the rebellion betrayed their country. They wanted Russian soldiers to kill each other, to kill civilians, so that in the end Russia would lose and our society would split and choke in bloody civil strife.
He said he let the uprising go on for as long as it did to avoid bloodshed. And he summoned his security chiefs, including his defence minister, in a clear signal Sergei Shoigu hasn't been sacked. The Wagner mercenary chief Yevgeny Prigozhin had been blaming him for failures in Russia's military campaign when the rebellion began. Mr. Prigozhin hasn't been seen since striking the deal with the Kremlin to stop his fighters marching on Moscow. It's not clear where he is now, but he posted an audio message saying he wasn't trying to overthrow the presidency of Vladimir Putin.
The goal of our march was to prevent the destruction of Wagner and to bring those who made a huge number of mistakes during the special military operation to justice.
He acknowledged his mercenaries killed Russian pilots during their advance on the capital. But Prigozhin said there was no choice because Moscow's planes were attacking them with bombs and missiles. Russian military bloggers are claiming 13 pilots were killed, a figure that has not been verified. It was all smiles when Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met with troops on the eastern front lines. He didn't mention the drama in Russia, which may be far from over. Steve Kinane, ABC News.
A record-breaking performance from spinner Ashley Gardner has helped Australia defeat England by 89 runs in the Women's Ashes Test at Trent Bridge. The English batters had no answers for Gardner, who became the first Australian woman to take 12 wickets in a Test.